Welcome back to another Kicking Tables. We have a special episode for you today. We're not going to be talking about a game. We're going to be talking more about a game accessory kind of thing. We're going to be talking about minis. Of course, a lot of games have minis today. And our guest today is Michael Clute, the creator of Infernal Heroes and Epic Adventure Miniatures. Michael, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
So tell us about Epic Adventure Miniatures and your upcoming campaign for Infernal Heroes. What's it all about?
Well, let's see. I've been gaming since 1989 or so. I'm probably dating myself
You're
here.
just a youngin', man. You're just a youngin'.
It started with first edition D&D and played all through up to fifth edition, but of course skipped fourth.
I think most people did.
But along the way, I mean, I was influenced by many of the original Dungeons and Dragons artists. I mean, the Four Horsemen, Clyde Claudwell, Keith Parkinson, Brom later when during the '90s, and it's what really kind of drew me to tabletop gaming.
Yeah.
And although I pursued a career in concept art for video games and the entertainment industry, nothing quite drove me to create art like, just being around a table with my friends and playing a really cool game.
Yeah.
Throwing some dice and drinking some dew. And
That's about it, right? Yep.
and so I actually went to school. I went back to school to go ahead and pursue my career in art, and I fell in love with sculpture.
Okay.
And I went to Cal State Long Beach, and the sculpture program was going through a little bit of a hiatus and in transition, where they were really diving into more performance-based art instead of traditional statuary, which I was a little more intrigued with. And so I went back to my tried and true, which was illustration, got my degree in that, fell in love with animation and a series of other things. But along the way, I always wanted to try and make my own miniatures. Problem though is, oddly enough, I have pretty shaky hands. So shaky hands and small, minute painting and details just don't go hand in hand. And miniatures have always been a huge component to my games growing up. My all of my D&D groups, we've always relied on miniatures. So trying to find that perfect miniature that was the avatar of your character, especially when I was drawing everybody's characters, running my own games. You can only kit bash so much.
Yep.
And so fast forward and try and tidy things up. Sorry about the long-winded life story
please.
here. When 3D printing and resin printers became a little more available and to the quality that and accessibility that they are, about 2019, I want to say, I was hooked and I said, you know what, I'll give this thing a try. I love traditional sculpture, but it was usually a larger format that I did. So I decided to go ahead and give it a try. I taught myself how to use ZBrush. Thankfully, the learning curve or some of the processes are a little close to traditional sculpture, and found that I had a knack for it. Loved it. Started up Epic Adventure Miniatures, and it was kismet from there. So now
tell us about Infernal Heroes then. What is the project you're bringing to Kickstarter?
So here's the thing. Like when I started doing my own Patreon, I was a little more, I was far too ambitious for my own good, like most artists are. And I was going to make every single character race and character class combination, and that's what I was really, kind of focusing on. But it was way too ambitious for me to go and do.
That's huge.
Especially as an independent artist, I don't have a studio with a roster of artists. I don't have a marketing team. I don't have graphic.
Right.
I am graphic designer. I am customer service. I am concept artist, sculptor. I am, all of it.
You're the jack of all trades.
All trades.
Wear many hats.
So, my past career as a art director for video games, instead of the indie video game industry kind of started to rear its head, and there's a lot more collaboration with that. The cool part about our community is that a lot of sculptors, we're really close, or
Mm.
we talk quite a bit. Um, we branch out to each other, try and troubleshoot problems, and just see what everybody's up to. In doing so, I became really, really acquainted with Nikki from Nikki's Hatchery, and found out that we kind of have similar goals for what we want to do.
Okay.
And I pitched it to him. I said, "Hey, dude, this thing that I want to do, way too big for just me. Do you want to go and collaborate?" He said, "I'm down."
Awesome.
So we decided, at first I said, "Hey, let's go ahead and start from the beginning of the player's handbook and let's just go all the way through." And he said, "Ah, man, I don't want to do humans or dwarves or elves. That's just boring and it's everywhere." Okay, well, what about tieflings? There seems to be a real clamor for them. I think it's really cool.
They're one of the
Um,
newer races.
they are, yeah. Started what in second edition Planescape, technically, and then were introduced, I think, in fourth edition in the player's handbook, right?
I couldn't be. I'm not for sure. I know they're in fifth edition, but
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
sir.
not sure when they were exactly introduced.
So the cool part about tieflings is that when you go just based off the description inside the player's handbook, it is real vague. So there's a lot of open for interpretation components there. So I talked to Nikki. I said, "Dude, you know what I don't see with Infernal or Tiefling designs is people really tacking or tapping into that Infernal heritage, right?
Mm.
Um, is it a demon? Is it a pit fiend? Is it a horned devil, a spiked devil, a bearded devil? Where is this creature gaining its lineage from the abyss?"
The answer is
Uh,
yes.
let's tap into that. Let's try and use that as our design aesthetic and our inspiration, and let's go ahead and create some really cool looking minis. And in
Yeah.
doing so, I've been doing the concept art and half the sculpts. Nikki has been kind of doing some phenomenal sculpts and then pushing me to go ahead and up my game quite substantially. So it's really, really cool. It's been an awesome experience to kind of work with another artist again and get them to go, "Hey man, you're kind of failing on this. Why don't you improve, get better?" And I'm like, "Oh, all right, let's do
The
it."
Yeah.
the challenges there. I want to know, where like the art style itself, where did you draw inspiration from for the actual art style of your miniatures?
So I am a huge fan of Joe Madureira, Darksiders, Battle Chasers,
Okay.
and Wayne Reynolds. And so if there is a spot on the belt to throw some sort of belt pouch, dagger, scroll, multiple belt pouches, some dangly thing, I'm gonna throw it in there. And
Awesome.
thankfully, I have Nikki to go and hold me back and go, "Hey man, let it breathe a bit."
That's awesome. No, I mean, I've noticed on your website the pictures you have for some of them. Some of them actually have it looks like translucent resin as like for the sorcerers, for example. In the Kickstarter, are backers going to get the models, or are they getting the STL files, or both? And if it's both, are they going to have a separate model for the translucent pieces of the models?
I didn't think if I wasn't sure if I was going to offer that.
Okay.
But now that you mention it, I will get with our fulfillment house to see if we can make that happen, because I am designing them so that those two pieces can be separated and printed separately.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, we are offering it as an STL package as well as physical models.
Okay. Now, will backers have a choice, or is there going to be a package where you
Yes.
can get both? The
It'll
STL.
be yeah, yeah. We'll have a package. Essentially, if you purchase the physical minis, you'll gain access to the STL
Oh, okay.
files.
Oh,
Okay.
fantastic. I personally just got into 3D resin printing, and I am absolutely loving it. Like it's a joy to me to when it comes off the plate and just to spend that time. I just sit in front of the TV and I spend it with a little hobby knife, making sure it's clean, taking off all the supports, nice and clean. Look, dipping it in water I'd use water washable, so I dip it in water as I'm working, making sure it's nice and smooth. There's a joy in working with these miniatures. What size are your miniatures going to be? Are they going to be the 32 millimeter or are they bigger?
So for the physical options, we are going to go 32 millimeter.
Oh,
Okay.
beautiful. Okay.
For the STLs, however, since Nikki and I prefer to print ours at about 40 millimeters to the eye line, sometimes a little bit bigger.
Okay.
Um, it's as large as we can get it on a 25 millimeter round base,
So
and
one
still
inch,
fit.
still a 1 inch base then.
Still 1 inch base, yeah.
Perfect.
So I mean, I call it heroic scale, but
Okay.
it ends up being just a little 40 42 millimeters tall.
Well, that's okay. I mean, tieflings are tall.
Yeah.
So, I
It
mean,
fits.
they're definitely taller than a gnome.
Yeah, there was a trend, and I noticed it quite instantly because I first and foremost am a fan of it. I love I follow and subscribe to quite a few artists and Patreons. So what I found was some of the more engaging ones that fit my aesthetic tended to be about that scale anyways. Cast and Play and Artisan Guild, they have,
Yeah.
a rather large scale, but their bases are ginormous.
Oh,
So even when considering the design of these, I knew that I wanted mine to be as large or as tall as some of those other miniatures, but I wanted it to fit on a 1 inch base. So
perfect.
Nikki and I are very careful to go ahead and pay attention to that.
Okay, one more question about the STLs. Are the characters and the bases separated?
Yes.
Beautiful. That's what I like to hear.
How many miniatures are included in your campaign?
So the core set is 24. We've got a
Okay.
male and female of every single class inside the player's handbook.
Wow.
Um, and we've got some pretty ambitious stretch goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
At last count, we were at 60.
60
60
stretch
stretch
goals.
goals.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. Amazing.
And any of those you can tease for us?
Yes.
All right.
So
Awesome.
we are planning on doing an epic version of every single standard class. We also want to dive into the expanded classes like an artificer,
Oh,
alchemist,
Okay.
okay.
gunslinger,
Yes. Got to get a little
necromancer,
Percy going on
right?
in there, right?
Yes, sir. And then, of course, the one part or the one part of the stretch goals that I'm super excited about is the other Infernal Heritages. Because when you see a tiefling, it's always kind of teased that, oh, it's a half human, half fiend.
Yeah.
Well, why can't we have like a gnome infernal or like a
Oh.
dragonborn infernal or an orc infernal
Well,
or
isn't a dragonborn kind of an infernal to begin with?
no, because they're still dragon blooded, right? So if we've got
True.
like a
Okay.
dragon, and so then we've got a demon
Hmm.
from the abyss that made a contract with their ancestor, and then that's starting to bubble up after they. One of the things that I dove into was the lore and tieflings are a little lacking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to try or I imagined them as being these creatures or just standard humanoids that when due to any sort of background connection or deal to a fiend or demon, um, will somehow activate once they have either they've committed a murder or lost their virginity.
Okay.
So they start out as regular humanoids, and then they transform, and that just the
Oh.
horror of that, these horns growing out, canines, tails growing, and just, their a small little habit or their small little village just goes into a frenzy and burn him, burn the
That's
witch.
That's interesting. That's interesting. You talk about them that way because my current D&D character is a fire Janasi, who is half elven, and because that's the nature of a Janasi is they're half whatever race and half genie. a genie race, and they don't. So my history on mine is very similar to yours. Is the Janasi aspects of himself didn't come out till he was 16, and then all of a
Mm.
sudden he started changing, and all his Janasi heritage started coming out. That's cool. It's really cool that you do it that way, because I like that where the character himself was normal up until a certain age.
Mm.
Yeah, so
And
that's
it also ties into, I think, um, again, doing just a bunch of research for this campaign. I started going down the rabbit hole with like Clive Barker and a bunch of
mhm.
other things, and I think all too often when these are stories of they're cautionary tales, right? Just like most
Yeah.
fairy tales, and they're deep rooted in religious hysteria or concern or fear. So in doing so, I think tapping into some of those core and root base instincts, and then also diving into some of the morality issues
Mm,
behind what is heritage really about. Does that tie you to a specific alignment, and can you be more than what you were born physically?
yeah. So for those people who back the campaign and get the STL files, are you retaining the rights on those files essentially so they can print them for personal use only? Is that the idea?
Correct.
Yeah, that's pretty
Correct.
typical.
Yeah. Personal.
Yeah.
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 Are you hoping in the future to do the other races, but like along these lines where Infernal Heroes are mostly are all Tieflings of every class? Do you want to still continue with the idea of doing all the races and all the classes?
Eventually, it's funny. One of the more fruitful components of this collaboration and partnership with Nikki has been, we're both DMs. We've both had our fair share of world building, and so we started thinking about what we wanted to do next. And
Hmm.
so we're already planning it. This is just the very first Kickstarter.
Yeah,
We will be, and it's building up to something much larger.
that's awesome.
Without going into too many specifics of our ultimate goal or this larger project, what I will say is that the heritage projects build upon each other, and they lend themselves to this larger project, which is I've already coined the name. I've already kind of put it out there, so I can tell you a bit about it, which is Assault on Ironhold. It
Okay.
is a uh, classic dungeon style dungeon crawl or classic dungeon crawl, but we are kind of putting a lot of the tropes on their head, and we are trying to bridge the gap between tabletop RPGs and wargaming.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, cool.
Okay, that's really cool. I look forward to that. You
So
make sure you come back on the show when you're ready to talk about that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I started off with that with Nikki, and I'm like, man, and we started throwing everything. Oh, we could do terrain, we could do this. We'll make a full campaign adventure. I'm like, man, there's just two of us. How are we going to do this?
Yeah, right.
So, the goal is to organically build epic adventures with some more artists, some more writers, and build up to that appropriately, because I think the project is just a tad bit ambitious, or for two people to do, and within a span of a year. If we were to try and do it just ourselves, we're looking at about a 10-year
Oh
project.
yeah, for sure, for sure. That's awesome. All right, Tico, shall we move on to the lightning round? What do you think?
I think he's ready.
All right, Michael, we have a lightning round of questions where we want to get to know you and your gaming habits outside of your own project. Is that cool? Just
Absolutely.
really, really quick questions. Just answer the first thing comes to mind.
All right.
All right, purchasing games, local game store or online?
Local.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
What's a game you always win?
Oh, Wii Sports.
Okay. What's your favorite childhood game?
Castlevania.
Okay. It can be board games too.
Okay, board games. Oh, crossbows and catapults.
Okay. Legacy games. Destroy components or preserve them.
Preserve.
Oh, really? Okay. What's a game you love but you always lose?
Game I love but always lose. Monopoly. My wife is a banker.
Okay.
But she's the banker in the game, or she's a
Both,
banker.
really, in real life.
Oh, oh
All right.
wow.
Well,
Oh,
hopefully she's not pocketing from money
I'm
for from her actual job just when she's playing you.
I'm
Just me, yeah.
I'm surprised you play that game with her. Period.
I gotta let her win because I always beat her at Wii Sports.
Wow,
No, that's
that's
fair.
fair. Science fiction or fantasy?
Ooh, science fiction.
Okay. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh man, I knew you were gonna ask me that.
There is also a secret third answer to this.
Um, Dune.
The correct answer is both, but
Okay.
I am a big Star Trek and a Star Wars fan, so I will always accept both as the answer to that.
Then I will gladly say both because I love them both so
Me
much.
too. Me too. Me too. Well, that's it for our lightning round, just to get to know you outside of your project. So before we let you go, what's your final thoughts? What do you want people to know about Infernal Heroes, and what do you want them to know about it, and why should they go and back your Kickstarter?
Well, I mean, it's first and foremost, it's something that it's I haven't seen anything like it. I mean, I wouldn't have started this thing if I had already seen a lot of what I did and what we've been producing.
Right.
Um, I think there's a need for it constantly. When I was just working on other races, I had a ton of people asking me, "When are you going to do Tieflings? When are you going to do Tieflings?" I did like two, and they're like, "More, more." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, let's give you more." So if you love Tieflings, you want to see the visual aspects of those to be expanded upon. Infernal Heroes is you have to go ahead and jump in and grab some.
Yeah. It is. Tieflings are
Yeah.
definitely an under appreciated in the mini market. That's for sure. So Infernal Heroes hits Kickstarter on July 6th. So everybody go check that out. The link is in the description below. So click on it. Go give them some love over there. If you're into 3D printing, you can get the STL files like myself. That's going to be awesome. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show, and good luck with your campaign.
Thanks for having me. Hey there, everybody. Thanks for watching. Please run run when you can, and go to Infernal Heroes and back our campaign. We'd love to have you. And make sure you subscribe and like the OMG Nexus. The button should be somewhere around here.